There are words that flatter, and then there are words that wake you up. What I'm about to say isn't what you've heard before. It's what most people avoid hearing, because once you understand this, you'll never listen to compliments, attraction, or connection the same way again. You'll start to see through the noise, through the games, through the surface level talk that everyone seems addicted to. And suddenly, you'll realize why certain words from certain people hit you right in the soul. Not because they were romantic, but because they were real. You see, there's a kind of energy that comes from someone who's lived enough to stop pretending. Their voice carries stillness, not performance. Their eyes don't look for attention, they observe. And when that kind of person speaks to you, not to your image, not to your beauty, but to your essence, something shifts inside you. It's like being recognized after years of being overlooked. It's calm, it's quiet, but it's life-changing. And most people have no idea what that feels like. They think they do, until they experience it. This video isn't about dating or flirting or decoding attraction. It's about awareness, emotional, spiritual, human awareness, and how a few words spoken with presence can reach parts of you that even love sometimes can't. So before you scroll away, just listen, not with your ears, but with your awareness, because what you're about to hear may finally explain why some compliments stay in your memory forever, while others disappear the moment they're said. And once you understand that truth, you'll never settle for ordinary words again. When an older man gives a compliment, it rarely sounds like one. It doesn't arrive dressed in exaggeration or sweetened by expectation. It arrives slowly, quietly, often in the middle of an ordinary moment, and yet it lingers in the mind long after. Because he's not saying it to get something. He's saying it because he sees something. That's the difference between speaking from awareness and speaking from intention. Younger men often speak to prove something. Their confidence, their charm, their appeal. Their words are loud, rehearsed, performative. They want to be remembered for what they said, but an older man has already lived through the noise. He no longer needs to be impressive. His presence has matured into stillness, and his stillness gives meaning to everything he says. When he offers a compliment, it's not a move. It's a moment of recognition. This is where depth enters the conversation. Awareness changes the tone, the energy, even the way a word lands. A man who is self-aware doesn't speak to manipulate, he speaks to reflect. When he says, "You seem lighter today," he's not hinting at attraction, he's observing emotional energy. When he says, "You carry yourself differently," he's not flirting, he's noticing growth, peace, or maybe the quiet victory behind her calm expression. And that subtle difference is what makes his words echo inside her. Because most people are used to being looked at, not seen. Compliments that come from intention are about appearance. Compliments that come from awareness are about essence. An older man's awareness is sharper because life has taught him the art of silence. To listen not only to words but to pauses, to notice what's not being said. That's what gives depth to his perception. And when a woman is seen with that kind of attention, it hits deeper than any surface level praise ever could. There's also a kind of emotional intelligence behind his words. He doesn't compliment to fill a void in himself or to make her feel obligated. He doesn't need to rush her response or turn her smile into validation. His words exist independently of what comes after. They stand on their own, calm, certain, self-contained. That's why they feel safe. There's no hidden motive, no emotional debt attached. Just truth, gently spoken. And in that simplicity, there's power. Because the truth doesn't need decoration. It just needs presence. Older men understand that presence is a language. One that says, "I'm here, I see you, and I don't need anything from you." For a woman who's spent years being seen as an image, that kind of energy is disarming. It breaks through her defense mechanisms. It reminds her what it feels like to be respected for who she is, not what she offers. Psychologically, this interaction activates something deeper. Human beings are wired to crave understanding more than attention. Understanding brings emotional safety. Attention often brings pressure. That's why a single grounded compliment from an aware man can outshine 1,000 empty flatteries from others. It meets a need that runs beneath attraction, the need to be recognized in one's truth. He might say, "You seem more at peace with yourself lately." And she'll feel that pause in her chest. Because somewhere deep inside, she knows it's true. She feels seen, not because someone praised her, but because someone noticed her becoming. And that awareness validates not her beauty, but her journey. Older men who speak from awareness aren't just communicating, they're mirroring. They reflect back the strength, the grace, the evolution they see. Their words don't inflate egos, they awaken self-respect. They create a moment of clarity where a woman realizes how far she's come and how deeply she deserves to be seen that way. And maybe that's why their compliments feel timeless. They don't expire with mood or circumstance. They become internal affirmations, something she carries long after the conversation ends. Because real awareness plants something inside you, a new way of seeing yourself. So the next time you hear a man speak from stillness, pay attention. The calm in his voice isn't emptiness, it's wisdom. The pause before his words isn't hesitation, it's depth. And the compliment he gives isn't a performance, it's perception. The words that come from awareness are sacred because they don't just describe who you are. They remind you of who you've always been. Most people mistake compliments for validation. They think it's about admiration, about saying the right words that make someone feel good for a moment. But the truth is, a real compliment isn't meant to flatter. It's meant to awaken. The rare ones, the ones that linger in your mind long after, are never about the surface. They're about energy. They recognize something invisible, something deeply human. And that's exactly what makes them unforgettable. When an older man gives a compliment, he doesn't speak to your appearance, he speaks to your essence. His awareness is tuned differently. Life has taught him that beauty without depth fades, that attraction without understanding feels hollow. So when he says, "You seem lighter today," he's not talking about your body. He's acknowledging the release of something heavy inside you, the unspoken burden you might have carried for months. When he says, "Your energy feels calm," he's not noticing how you look. He's recognizing the peace you fought hard to find. And when he says, "You think deeply," he's not surprised by your intelligence. He's honoring the way your mind works. That's what makes these compliments so powerful. They don't touch the ego, they touch the truth. And the truth is magnetic. The reason they hit so deep is because most people spend their whole lives being complimented for things they didn't choose. Their looks, their style, their smile. But very few are ever seen for the things they earned, their strength, their patience, their emotional maturity. Think about it. How many times have you been told you're beautiful? And how many times has someone said, "You have a peaceful kind of strength"? One makes you smile for a second. The other makes you pause and breathe. One speaks to what you show the world. The other speaks to what the world rarely notices. That's the difference between flattery and recognition. Psychologically, when someone acknowledges something deeper about you, it activates a part of the mind linked to authentic validation. This is not the shallow dopamine rush of social attention. It's emotional resonance. It's the feeling of being seen without needing to explain yourself. And that's why these rare compliments can shift a person's sense of self. They're not just words, they're mirrors. Older men often understand this because they've learned the language of stillness. They've learned that true connection doesn't happen when you talk the most, but when you observe the most. They notice energy shifts. They read the tone behind your words. They see the small details, the way your face softens when you're finally at ease, or how your voice lowers when you're speaking from truth instead of defense. When they compliment, they're describing what their awareness has registered, not what their eyes have seen. That's why these compliments feel safe. They don't objectify, they honor. They don't pull you into performance. They pull you into presence. A woman doesn't feel like she's being evaluated. She feels like she's being understood. It's no longer about whether she's attractive. It's about whether she's authentic. And that subtle shift changes everything. Philosophically, we all crave this kind of recognition. Every soul wants to be mirrored back by someone who sees its light. We want to be told that our inner evolution matters more than our outer image. Because when someone compliments your energy, your resilience, or your kindness, they're not just observing you, they're acknowledging your growth. They're saying, I see what you've built within yourself. And that's the kind of compliment that expands your identity instead of feeding your ego. It's rare because it requires awareness. It requires a quiet mind that isn't distracted by appearances. And that's why it feels different when it comes from someone who's lived, someone who's seen the illusion of external beauty fade and has learned to value the quiet beauty of emotional depth. Their compliment carries the weight of experience. It's not a line, it's wisdom in motion. So the next time someone compliments you, listen beyond the words. Ask yourself, are they seeing your surface or your substance? Are they attracted to your image, or are they recognizing your energy? Because the compliments that touch your soul will never come from someone who's trying to impress you. They'll come from someone who's grounded enough to understand you. And maybe that's what we all need to remember. The most beautiful thing about a person isn't how they look when the light hits them. It's how they make others feel when their truth shines through. When a compliment is real, it doesn't inflate you, it awakens you. When you strip away all the layers of modern relationships, the texting games, the social media validation, the obsession with who gives more attention, you begin to see a quiet truth. Women don't crave attention as much as they crave understanding. Attention is easy, it's everywhere. But understanding, that's rare. It's the emotional luxury of being seen for who you are, not for the image you maintain. And that's what makes the compliments from older men feel different. They don't chase your attention, they meet your essence. Understanding is not about saying, you're beautiful. It's about saying, I see how your strength hides your sensitivity. It's not about noticing how she looks. It's about recognizing what she's been through. It's about reading her silence as clearly as her words. And when that kind of awareness enters a conversation, it creates a moment that touches something deep inside. Because to be understood is to feel safe. It tells the heart, you don't need to perform anymore. Most women have spent years being admired for things that never reflected their depth. Compliments about beauty, fashion, or charm are easy to give. They cost nothing and carry no awareness. But the kind of compliments that hit deeper are the ones that say, I see the way you hold yourself together, even when you're breaking. Or, you speak with gentleness, even when life has been harsh to you. Those words don't come from curiosity. They come from comprehension, and comprehension comes from presence. An older man has learned that presence is the highest form of respect. He doesn't listen to respond. He listens to understand. He studies tone, rhythm, pauses. He notices how someone looks away when they're avoiding truth, or how their eyes soften when they finally feel safe to be real. That's where connection begins, not in attention, but in awareness. Because attention is about you and me, but understanding is about we. It bridges two minds that no longer need to prove anything. Psychologically, women connect through emotional attunement. They are drawn to those who can read what isn't being said. That's why a man who understands her beyond words feels magnetic. He doesn't need to chase, he simply tunes in. When he says, "You seem tired but still grounded," she feels seen. When he notices the emotional meaning behind her words, not just their content, she feels recognized on a level that most people never reach. And that kind of recognition is powerful. It builds trust faster than any romantic gesture ever could. You see, attention stimulates, but understanding heals. Attention feeds the ego, but understanding feeds the guy's soul. When someone understands you, you don't have to perform. You don't have to filter. You don't have to edit your truth. That kind of space allows a person to breathe, to exist without fear of judgment. And that's what most people are secretly starving for. Not more love, not more excitement, but more peace inside connection. Philosophically, understanding is the highest form of love because it asks for awareness, not control. It doesn't try to fix, impress, or dominate. It simply witnesses. Older men who have experienced loss, success, and self-reflection know that peace comes not from possession, but from perception. So when they compliment, their words don't cling, they liberate. They say, "You don't have to try so hard." They remind her that she's already enough. That kind of energy doesn't create attachment. It creates alignment. And when a woman feels understood, she starts to rise differently. She starts to soften. She no longer seeks validation from those who don't see her. She becomes selective about energy, about company, about who gets access to her world. Because once you've been deeply understood, superficial attention feels empty. Once you've been mirrored by awareness, you can't go back to being admired by ignorance. That's why those rare compliments from aware men stay etched in memory. They come from a place of stillness, not strategy. They don't flatter the image, they honor the journey. They don't pull you into fantasy, they anchor you in truth. And that truth is powerful because it doesn't just make you feel good. It makes you see yourself differently. In the end, understanding is the language of depth. It's not loud, not flashy, but it's unforgettable, because being understood is not about someone knowing your story. It's about someone feeling your soul. So remember, this attention might turn heads, but understanding turns hearts. And once you've felt that kind of connection, no amount of noise will ever feel like music again.